So in terms of AAA, if that's a category,
Big budget.
What do
big
the
blockbuster.
A's stand for, by the way?
it's like a credit rating, I think.
Oh, okay. Or do they fix your tire?
don't know.
Tire's messed up.
That too. So we had Call of Duty Ghosts, of course, most recently.
Yeah, I felt like it was a little step backward. What else?
BioShock, Saints Row 4, Tomb Raider, Battlefield 4, Rome 2, Assassin's Creed 4, Dead Space 3. Those are that's kind of it though.
Big mainstream games.
Well, you'll notice that all of those games are an existing series, and Tomb Raider is a remake,
You can also put Enemy Within in there, which we loved,
Yeah.
but it's an expansion.
but they all have numbers attached to them.
The numbers or like no new IP.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a Bulletstorm, like a
Right.
sort of experimental AAA feeling shooter, or a Mirror's Edge.
There
this year.
weren't a lot of risks. I mean, I still think that what Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix did with Tomb Raider was brave, insofar as they took a series that was really, really formulaic, a character that was basically just an avatar you were moving around and like wasn't even really a person or a character anymore, just like a symbol. And they turned they turned Lara Croft into an honest to God character, like a girl that I cared about and wanted to see survive. I think that's a big deal. Not everybody agrees with that.
No, I mean, yeah, their execution of it was interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they took it in that direction, but at the same time, that's Square Enix saying, what licenses do we have in our library?
I suppose.
We got Deus Ex, we got Thief, yeah.
I still applaud them for pulling it off, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if I can say
certainly.
the same thing for Call of Duty.
Yeah, certainly.
Oh, you
certainly.
couldn't.
There are definitely some stale candidates
Right.
in here from AAA.
Ghost Dad was
like
interesting, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean, like Tomb Raider doesn't have to be the thing that exemplifies this trend this year, because it was a good game. Same with Assassin's Creed 4. I think there was some good moves by Ubisoft there by kind of not retconning, but just deciding willfully to ignore some of the stuff they had set up and make it a pirate game.
I mean,
and
even
include the Templar assassin stuff, but mostly sail around doing pirate stuff, focusing on what's fun and changing the series. When Assassin's Creed 3 had so many problems.
you even
come
said it
back
kind
from
of
that.
references like its annual release schedule and
Yeah, I mean, not so
self-referential
much
at a certain point.
directly, but they set the future stuff in this sort of futuristic Montreal-based game development studio, which is obviously a parody of themselves.
Sure.
Actually, the studio works with Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a company in the game.
Okay.
I think that's cute. The stuff, it's a little bit boring, that stuff, but you don't have to spend long doing it, and it's just them being kind of cheeky, almost sort of acknowledging like that they're the big evil games company, you know, that's making annual releases. But then, hey, here's this great pirate game. Pirates are fun.
And even then, it's more evolution than revolution. I
Absolutely.
guess you're right from that perspective. Like there was no breath of fresh air.
Well, we'd probably be saying something very different if Watch Dogs had released this year.
Yeah.
I imagine Watch Dogs, and then also from Ubisoft, The Division, not scheduled to
Right.
come out in 2013.
Yeah, so Watch Dogs was delayed.
We call those pretty original AAA games, I guess.
Yeah,
Outside of
absolutely.
the Tom Clancy thing, which may not just be a name attached to it, honestly.
But Watch Dogs certainly looked interesting. I was interested in the ideas in it. It's a bit of a GTA-like, but not a lot that I can think of. I know we're missing some AAA sort of releases, but I can't imagine we would have known, right? If there was some big, exciting new, even an interesting failure, like
Homefront, for example.
It was an attempt to create a new shooter franchise.
There's
didn't
nothing here
work.
on the level of like Mirror's Edge,
No.
and I think that's, maybe that's not surprising, but I guess I would have hoped for a few more chances here.
You mentioned Mirror's Edge. Like I wrote down Dead Space 3 because that exemplifies this year for me, because Mirror's Edge and Dead Space were released in the same year, and I remember how optimistic I was feeling. I was like, look at EA, look at you. You put out Mirror's Edge, it didn't sell a lot, but what an interesting idea for a game. How cool that DICE is not just making Battlefield. And then you put out Dead Space, which was a proper sort of survival horror game. Ammo conservation, some scary, cool monsters, the idea of using tools as your weapon. And then this year we have Dead Space 3, which not a bad game by any means. I didn't play a lot of it, but
Right.
it not brave, not bold, the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Co-op, human enemies,
Yeah,
not as inventive as Dead Space was.
As we transition console generations, to kind of get the sense, the theme we're talking about here is it's kind of like a last call for some major franchises.
Yeah, get your GTA 5 out before the Switch.
Don't get me started on GTA 5.
Right. But not for us.
But it's just another year where we're seeing more of that creativity and freshness out of the quote-unquote indie space. And at this point, it's not even a surprise that would happen. Like, we look to those smaller indie games on Steam for those breaths of fresh air.
Maybe the lack of surprises we sort of talked about with the indie scene was because we used to have our heads turned toward the AAA, waiting to see what they were going to show us. But over the past few years, we've turned our heads, and now we're spending more time looking at the indie scene. It's not surprising us as much because we're paying more attention to it. Because, what the big publishers are making some great games, but Call of Duty Ghosts doesn't get us super excited. Dad.
I like the big games that take some of those aspects that we normally see in the smaller games, like permadeath, right? Or like serious consequences, and fold that into their games. I mean, XCOM, like, we all play XCOM on Iron Man mode. And it's because that permanence of if a squatty dies, like, that's important. I want to see more blockbuster games fold more stuff like that.
I have a sense that The Division is going to be a great example of that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I hope so.